And on today's episode of Gardening with Natty, we're here in North Carolina, around the north central area of the Piedmont, just south of Winston-Salem. This is one of my favorite terrains. For those of you that have been following me, I have been in southern Florida for the winter. Spent about 4 months or so down there. I was going to stay longer, but decided to come up here to get some things I needed to get done and all that. This is a garden tour, by the way, just so that you're aware of why I'm about to be rambling at you for the next few minutes. This garden bed was put here by a previous occupant. I didn't build this, but I have been rebuilding it since last year when my parents first moved here. I transplanted the oregano, the thyme, and the mugwort all last year. This lettuce also came from some food that we ate, and it appears to be reseeding itself. I'm hoping that the grain amaranth that I planted is also seeding. I believe that's what this is sprouting here. You can even see that due to light problems. The poor lighting is really so terrible. Like, this camera just doesn't pick it up. I'm in broad midday sunlight. I don't know how, I can't hardly even see my screen, so I don't know what I'm really looking at right now. But you see all these dandelions in here. You'll see these dandelions all throughout this. This is what I scraped up just a couple of weeks ago to plant some seeds that I had intended for several other locations, but I ended up getting rained on, and my seeds got wet, and they began to germinate into packages. So I had to throw them in the ground and pray. But you see these dandelion, I planted these last year to prepare the soil and get ready and to produce food and medicine for myself. But you can see, this is a crucifer here. This is either some type of Asian cabbage or like pak choi, or it's a maiki. I had to mix these seeds up and I just threw them in the ground as mixed greens. Also in this row is Cherokee Tears. The next row over is Carolina Golden Rice. The next row over from that are cowpeas. And then the next row here will be flax. Now, this isn't very impressive or entertaining or whatever. It's just some scraped up dirt. I didn't even really do much but remove the grass. This is another bed that was actually a compost bed that I now have planted. Last year I threw gourds, what I call rattle gourds. They're like little fist size gourds. They're really good for making rattles. That's probably what these are, because I threw them all in this corner and spread the seeds around here. I also have Cherokee Tears and some herbs planted in here. We'll see what actually sprouts. And then over there has been my compost pile since last season, and I'm just going to plant right on top of it. Probably, I don't know. I actually have a bushel gourd planted in the corner over here. They've not sprouted yet. And I have bushel gourds, birdhouse gourds, loofah gourds, all planted throughout this entire tree line area. Now, this is really what I would like to show you, because a lot of the stuff, especially if you've been following me over the years on Facebook or have known me personally and have listened to my rants, you've heard me talk about food forestry, the 7 layers of the canopy forest garden, and how it all works. Well, this is it. Of course, I didn't plant any of this, but this is what I mean whenever I say that I have a regional garden. From the southern Appalachians, Blue Ridge Mountains here in North Carolina, to the North Carolina Outer Banks, and along the coast all the way down to the Everglades. That is my preferred territory and and the full scale of my garden. I'm a guerrilla gardener. That means that I am wild and free. I don't own any land yet, though it is a goal of mine to have some private land so that I can do some more intricate things. But this is an established forest that has not been well maintained. I'm actually coming in. You see where these pines are all messed up, falling over and dying. The pines actually have something that's like blighting them. I'm not sure if it's a fungus or some kind of growth, but all the pines out here have this kind of greenish stuff growing on their trunks, and I've seen this in other places like Southern Virginia, Tennessee, where it'll start to do like this, and it'll start to catch damage like this, and then partway up it'll start to turn black, and eventually these trees will die. The core of them die out, and the wind blows and they snap and fall over. And it's something that's affecting the pines in this region. It's one big reason why I'm all about seed advocacy, planting from seed and growing from seed rather than cuttings. If you have a diseased plant, propagate it by seed, plant its babies, because genetically speaking, that plant is eventually going to develop some kind of resistance to the disease, or pest for that matter. But you have a mixed deciduous forest here, with conifers being mostly pines and juniper family members. There's both white and red cedar here. There's also, you've got maple trees, you've got elm, I believe that is over there. There's about 4 or 5 varieties of oak here, including pin oak, red oak, white oak, a couple other varieties I can't think of off the top of my head. And I'm not 100%, I might be crazy. Oh no, this is a wild blueberry. Those are blueberry fruits right there. Yep, wild blueberry. Did not plant this. I have no idea where or how it got started. But this is what I mean about my garden. This here is a sweet gum tree, native tree to the regions, medicinal. The sap can be used as an antiseptic to wash wounds, and has various other applications. You got in here, you also have tulip poplar, which is one of my favorite trees. The tulip poplar in this region also has a blight that's killing the trunk, turns it black, eats the core of the trunk out, and then it just stands there hollow until it falls down. And if I can find my way through the greenbrier here, hold on, the greenbrier is actually pretty thick. Greenbrier, you also hear me call it houndbane, because the hunters, old school hunters up in the mountains, they used to say that when they turned the coon hounds out to go hunting, the raccoons would lead the hounds up into patches of greenbrier and get them stuck. So they call it houndbane in some places. But this is greenbrier. And I'm pointing it out because a lot of people think that this is a weed and they want to remove it. So this is actually a very important plant for this region because it is indigenous. It provides food for birds through its berries and its growing tips. Its growing tips are actually edible for humans, and they're very tasty. They're kind of like kind of asparagus-y, kind of planty taste, you know, sharp and lively, really good stuff. I haven't looked into the nutritional qualities, but I can pretty well guess that by the taste of it, it's got some good flavonoids in it, and probably a good source of iron and a few things of that nature. Either way, when I eat it, I feel healthy, you know. I feel more awake and focused, more in tune with my environment and with my body. I feel, you know, just all around generally healthier when I'm eating this kind of stuff. Which also a lot of people don't consider. See, me watching this camera and figuring out where I'm at on here, I've lost my trail, and so, hold on. So you got ferns in here. This is muscadine. Now, if you were following me down in Florida, the muscadine was extremely invasive, choking everything it touched. Up here, I'm not worried about it, because it's growing at a slower rate and is an incredibly useful plant. The leaves are considered edible, and of course the fruits are edible. It is a wild grape and native to this area. This is periwinkle, and as far as I can tell, there is no native variety of periwinkle to the U.S. But medicinally, it is useful, and for various things, you can look at you can look into that yourself. Periwinkle has been in herbalism for a very long time. And then you've got, this is cleavers right here, and you'll know it because it'll grab you. But cleavers are good for healing wounds. It's partially edible, like you couldn't really make a meal out of it, but it does have nutritional qualities and helps with various physical conditions, mainly healing wounds, ulcers, things like that. Just a side note, the periwinkle is technically toxic, so be careful with your consumption of it. That's a hickory right there, and there's, I think, 2 kinds of hickory at least growing here. There's also wild rose growing here somewhere or another that I've found. And once you come through this section and you come into this is the pine section of the garden. And pine is also a very useful tree. Its pollen is edible, the seeds are edible. I think there's only 2 types of pinus, 2 or 3 types of pinus that are considered inedible or potentially toxic. Otherwise, white pines, I can't even, my mind is skipping. Most pine variety members, or most pine family members, are considered edible. The inner bark, the seeds, the pollen, the leaves can be made into a tea and drank. The inner bark should be cooked and then eaten, but also take in mind that if you take the inner bark from a tree, you're killing it. The entire tree will die. So that's a survival food. Deer will eat the inner bark of pines during the winter when no other food is available. So this is really what I'm into with food forestry. This section right here, I believe, let's see, I'm not good at identifying every type of tree, but I believe these to be elms. They're either elms or beeches, but beech has a smooth bark. I believe this to be elm. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. This is my teepee structure that I plan on using as a hangout, not so much as a shelter from the storm, but a hangout for whenever I'm coming through. Here's a better patch of cleavers to look at. I love this plant. It's really useful, and like I said, you can nibble on it. So this is essentially what my entire intention is to grow my gardens as. You've got these sections of trees that make up the forest aspect of the garden, and then along the tree lines and in the meadows, that's where you put your sunlovers and your annuals and things like fruits and vegetables and whatnot. And companion planting and understanding how this section of trees affects what's out there in the yard and vice versa. It's all interconnected, and that's something that is greatly overlooked with a lot of food forestry and garden designing. And I'm going to stop this so that it's at a 15-minute interval and make a second video to continue talking about this and to point out some more things that I would like to show you.